Welcome back to the Admin Hug. So awesome, you'll think it's a drug. This is not a normal hug, you know.
I am Megan. I wore my same fancy black t-shirt in that picture, so you would recognize me. I'm a product manager for workflows, have been for the last 5 years, and I brought with me Zeke, who's an engineering lead on my team. He's been here a few years longer than me, so he knows a lot. And then also Pukhraj, who's relatively new to our team. We love to have him. He joined last year, also working in automation. So I'm going to do some demos, hand it off to Pukhraj to do some demos, and Zeke is going to lurk in the chat to try to answer questions, but please definitely put them in the Q&A so that we can address them at the end. All right, let's get started. We are going to, like I said, go through some recently added features. We're going to talk about some betas, show you a bunch of demos. We're going to give you a sneak peek at things that are coming, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Starting with things that have been recently added, we have now task and call workflows. So with this change, you can trigger automation or workflows based directly on calls that are logged that have a certain outcome. Same for tasks. You can automate based on task statuses. I see somebody already asking about line items in the chat. We're going to keep talking about this, but let's look at what's possible with these ones today. So for example, a sales manager can now use a workflow to create a standard internal process for when a task is overdue. In this workflow, we're triggering when that happens, and say we want to send a notification to the owner over Slack. We can give them the information that they need right where they're working about what they need to do so they can action it today. Other things that you can do with task automation, you're going to see for triggers, you've got access to all the task properties. We also have other events, like just the fact that a task is being created. So maybe you've got folks working out of other systems, and anytime a task is created in HubSpot, we want that data pushed out to where they are. So we can set up a task created trigger, and then, depending on our integration, we could then also create that same task in Asana. Same exact idea for calls. When a call is logged with a certain outcome, you could create follow-up for your reps. Just get those processes standardized. No more doing these weird jump arounds where you're in a contact workflow, but you're trying to target something with a task.
Megan, do you think you could zoom in when you're on the workflow screens? They're just really tiny little.
Okay, yes, I'll see what I can do there. Next up, we have the create note action. So like it says, automatically creating notes in your workflows. Think of things like handoffs. Has your onboarding team ever found themselves on their heels because sales didn't pass along important information about a new customer? Another place where admins can now take control and try to standardize a process. Let's try to get a good look at this. Ooh. All right. Try not to lose anything for you here, but we'll try this one. So for this workflow, say we want to trigger when a deal is closed, one, and we want to add a note. More zoom. All right. Okay.
That looks good.
All right. So the great thing about notes and workflows is that they can incorporate any data that comes from the workflow. So we can put in tokens from the enrolled deal, like the contract start date, or even the closed won reason. And on top of that, we can put in data from associated records. So if I've added data sources to my workflow, maybe I want to pull in some details from the primary contact, like putting in their phone number. And I could even use runtime data that comes from other workflow actions. So for example, you're using like a webhook to pull in data from another system. I can take that content and put those tokens in my note as well. And when we had this action in beta, one of the biggest requests that we got from people was the ability to pin the note so that when somebody opens up that deal record, it is front and center for them. We might need to go through that Zoom process over and over again. We'll do our best here. Next up, we have what our team has been referring to as an initiative to let all types of actions be available in all types of workflows. So if you've been with HubSpot for a while, you've probably figured out that not all workflow types and triggers are compatible with all of the actions. It's probably frustrated you at some point. So for example, the set marketing contact status action. It's only ever been available in a contact workflow until recently. And this was because the action is only applicable to contacts. They're the only ones who can have a marketing status. But that then meant that you had to only use this in contact type workflows. That's not going to fit for every use case. So we've made an update here where now this action is available in all types of automation. I'll show you this one. Okay, so I'll show you how this works. So say you want to trigger automation when a deal is closed, lost, and you no longer want to spend marketing dollars on the folks from that company. So we can use the updated action to make this possible. What you're going to do is when you add this action, you're going to see that there is a new field here that you're going to set. We're no longer making that assumption that the person we're updating is that contact that's in the workflow, because now we're working in a deal workflow. So here in this field, you're going to choose which contact you want to set their marketing status for. We're providing some defaults of the ones that we know people are using the most. But if you wanted to be even more specific, you can add your own data source of which contacts. We're going to assume these defaults are working for you in this situation. And let's say we want to update all of the associated contacts and we want to set them all as non-marketing. We've made these same updates to the manage subscription preference action and the send SMS action. So you're going to see these now available in any workflows where that record has an association with contacts. Next up, we've got workflow testing. So the old testing tool, we heard from a lot of people that it just wasn't giving them the confidence that they needed. We wanted to make this feature more robust, give you a more detailed look at how your workflow is set up, and get that reassurance that when you set it live, it's going to meet your expectations. I'm going to show you a couple examples of this. So when you click this test button here, you're going to choose your record that you want to test. And you're going to see that we're doing a lot more enrollment checks. I can see whether or not they meet the enrollment criteria, any other conflicts that exist, any unenrollment or suppression criteria that could impact them, and get a lot more detail about just like getting the right people into the workflow. I can also see visually what path that record is going to take through the workflow, just make that super clear and simple so you don't have to figure this out yourself. And I can click into other steps here to get more details. So for example, sending email. I now also have the option to just click to send myself a preview of that email. With the old test, you kind of just got everything all at once, and there were some weird behaviors with branches where you might start to get duplicates, and it just got very confusing. So we're giving you the power to just send those when you need them. And speaking of branches, the test is going to give me a prediction of the expected branch that my record's going to take based on that data that's available in the moment. But if I have reason to believe that that data may change, I can still manually override it and say I want to look at a different branch and then check any emails that are on that path or see what will happen next. We look at a slightly different example. So here's somebody who is not meeting the criteria. And again, that might be helpful information in itself. You know, we can look at why they don't meet the criteria. But I also, maybe I expect them to meet the criteria in the future. I still want to know what's going to happen. So I can override this by just saying, you know, if I were to manually enroll them, is anything else going to prevent them from enrolling? We can see the other checks are not going to be blockers. And then we can do the same thing where we're going to look at the detailed path that they'll have through the workflow. So our improved testing is going to show you that detailed breakdown of enrollment eligibility. You now get the visual pathing on the canvas to help you understand what's going to happen, and that improved control over email testing. At this point, I'm going to hand it off to Pukhraj to start sharing some of the features his team has been working on.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Awesome. All right, so about a month ago, our team released the Enroll and Workflow CRM card. So we built this because we noticed a recurring problem that reps are spending too much time on repetitive manual tasks. For example, sales reps are spending time scheduling calls or sending up follow-up materials manually instead of focusing on what they do best, which was closing deals. Now, you may be thinking, can't you just automate that with the workflow? And in some cases, yes, you can, but not always. A lot of these tasks rely on real-time context or human judgment, and there's no clean trigger for something like the call went well or the customer asked for more info. On top of that, most reps don't have the permissions to access or build workflows in the first place. So we asked ourselves, how can we make automation more accessible? And how can we give reps the power to act without giving up control? That's what led us to build the Enroll and Workflow CRM card. So it gives users the ability to trigger pre-approved workflows right from the CRM record at exactly the moment they need it. So let's take a closer look at what it can do. So I'm currently on a contact record page, but this card is available for any type of object, including your custom object. So to access the card, we can click on Customize View. Let's use our default view for now. You can click Add Card, Create Card, and you'll see the Enroll in Workflow card here. So from here, you can change the name of the card. So let's call this Sales Shortcuts. Once the card is actually made, you can clone and delete it. You can see a preview of what it's going to look like in your CRM. And most importantly, you can add workflows here. So the workflows have a couple of restrictions. The first being it needs to be turned on. It needs to match the object type of the record. So since this is a contact, these are all going to be contact-based workflows, and it needs to be created from the Workflows app. So I added 3 workflows here. After clicking Save and Exit, if we navigate back to the record page and scroll down, we can see this new card here. So if I enroll in this workflow, you can see that the record was successfully enrolled, and you can also see when the last time of enrollment was in order to prevent duplicate enrollments. Now, these workflows you add here can be as simple as just updating the lead status or rotating the contact, or it could be a little bit more complex. So here I have a workflow that essentially enriches and summarizes the changes for a contact after we use the Breeze Intelligence enrichment action. So here I tell Breeze to take note of a contact and some specific properties. I then go ahead and enrich the record and ask Breeze to determine whether it got enriched or not. And based on the answer here, if it didn't get enriched, I make a note on the record saying the contact is up to date. And if it did, I essentially ask Breeze to summarize the changes for me and tell me the impact that this would have on a sales rep and this upcoming call with this particular contact. So let's go ahead and refresh the record and see what happened. So we see that 10 properties got updated, and we see a short summary of the changes that occurred and how these changes could affect the sales call with this particular contact. Again, the response here is completely based on the prompt that you type into the Breeze action. So the possibilities here are really endless. Talking about the future roadmap for this project, there are a couple of key items, one being a new manual enroll permission. So right now you need to have Workflows edit access to be able to enroll a contact into a workflow. This new permission is going to allow you to give your reps the ability to manually enroll records without actually giving them any edit or view access. We're also working on the ability to edit the workflow names on the card. So we know that sometimes the name you use for your workflows may not always perfectly describe, the actual functionality of the workflow. So with this addition, you'll be able to easily communicate the functionality of your workflow without changing, any naming structure that you currently have for your workflows. So that is going to wrap up this demo. The next demo is for automation overview. So as many of you may know, automation is one of HubSpot's most powerful capabilities. And we offer a wide variety of tools to help you automate various different aspects of your business, things from lead management to ticket routing and more. And until recently, all of these tools were scattered all over the platform. It could be hard to discover all the automation offerings we have, find issues with your current automations, and even just get a sense of what automations you currently have running right now. And that's exactly why we built the automation overview page. So this page is designed to be your go-to spot, whether you're looking to discover and create new automations, but also to monitor and manage what's already live in your portal. So this page has been in GA for about a month, and we're actively improving it based on the feedback you guys are providing. So some of you may notice a slightly different design in your portal soon, and that's just simply because we're going to be running an A/B test on a new layout. So the content and the functionality is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is going to lie in the structure of the page. So today I'm going to walk you through the current version that's live in prod today. So let's start with one of my favorite features, this Create with AI component. So instead of starting your workflows from scratch, you can simply type in a prompt and click Create Automation. And what this is going to do is it's going to have Copilot generate a workflow for you. So it does take a little bit of time, but you can link directly to the workflow. It says the record's created, and we're able to create a new deal based on this contact being created. The next is this issue management center. So if I click on review automation issues, I can see that this card is going to surface issues across all of your automations, not just workflows. So from here, you can use this issue management tool to investigate and resolve, issues with all of your automations very quickly. And this is essentially going to allow you to keep your automations running smoothly and issue-free. The next section is regarding recommendations. So we provide smart and tailored recommendations based on your portal's usage and data. So these recommendations span from workflows, automation rules like routing, lead pipeline workflows, and more. And it's a really great way to discover any automations that you didn't know existed and allow you to get more out of automation at HubSpot. The next section is related to your marketing assets. So these include your emails, your forms, your ads, and it really encourages you to add automation to these assets to streamline your marketing efforts. So clicking this button will take you to the automation section of the asset, allowing you to easily create and add automation. We also highlight apps that are relevant to you, which you can integrate to unlock even more automation potential. The next half of the page is probably what most of you all are most interested in, the data. So here you're going to get a high-level view of the types of automations you have and where they come from. You're going to get a look into the workflow enrollment trends and action usage over time. So this really helps you understand not only what's running, but also how it's performing. So looking ahead on the roadmap for this particular project, some of the next items include we're going to be building prompt recommendations. So these are going to be workflow prompts based on your unique portal behavior, making every portal's recommendations completely different. So these prompts will leverage Copilot, like we saw before, to create new workflows that don't already exist in your portal today. And it's just another way that we're planning on helping you automate more with less effort. We're also exploring new ways to surface performance insight and suggest optimizations for your existing automations. So that way you can be sure your automations are as efficient as possible. We are still in the early stages of defining these enhancements. So if you do have feedback, whether that's something you want to see or something you'd rather not see, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll also drop down my email. So if you want to follow up with me directly, you can do that and share more thoughts. I will now pass it back over to Megan, who will talk about the current betas.
Thank you. I tried to get some questions in the chat around your presentations, but there might be some in there that you can answer better than I can. All right, so just because I've seen a couple of people asking in the chats, everything that we've shown so far is out, it's live, it should be available to you. If you're having a hard time finding it, just let us know. We'll point you to a knowledge base doc, but it should be available to you. These things that I'm going to show are in beta, just a couple ones, so you may or may not be seeing them. Both of them are available for you to join if you do want to. So let's see. You got a sneak peek of this in Pukhraj's example, but we have two new AI actions, Ask Breeze and Summarize Record. So the goal with these is to help you automate processes that have been complicated or impossible to automate before. Our Ask Breeze action lets you call an LLM, use AI to analyze, standardize, categorize your data, remove this task from a human having to review every detail. The Summarize Record action does something very similar to the Copilot summaries that you might have already used. This is going to get you the same result, but now you can use it at scale in your workflows. So let's talk about a couple examples. First, with Ask Breeze, a really straightforward example that a customer and I were chatting about is translation. So if you operate across multiple regions or countries, you may serve customers in a variety of languages, and you want to make sure that you're communicating with them in the same language that they're communicating with you. So this customer was bringing in data from another system, and it wasn't necessarily all going to be in the same language. They wanted to use an Ask Breeze action to take a given sample and automatically evaluate what language that person was using so they could save the preference. So if we open up an Ask Breeze action, you'll see all you're entering here is a message. For example, something really simple. What language is this? And say that I've got something stored in contact description. Something really important to note with this action is that you want to give it context. So you really do need to provide variables so that you're getting that dynamic result every time that somebody is running through this action. The other thing is that AI can be unpredictable. So we've introduced action testing for this action that actually runs this action for real. So you can see what the response you would get would be. And we would recommend that you always use this. So let's test my prompt. All right. So it preloads the last person you tested. So this is already ready for me. And we can see that the value that came from this contact down here, definitely in Spanish. And we are getting the type of response showing that it evaluated it correctly. But now I know I need to be more specific with my prompt because I don't want this extra commentary. I just want that language value. So let's go back to the prompt. And I can instruct that I want the name of the language only. We go back and we rerun our test. And now we can see that I am getting just Spanish, which is what I'm expecting. So now that this action is working the way that I want it to, the other important thing to note is that it's not actually taking any steps in my portal or changing anything. It's just getting me that response, that answer, and then it's up to me to decide how I want to apply it. So if I'm going to save this information to the CRM, I can save it to a record property. So say that I'm going to use an edit record action. And I want to update a custom languages property that I use. To get this value, I'm going to toggle away from the enrolled contact properties. And I'm going to go down and look at the properties that come from my actions. And you can see that here my Ask Breeze action is represented, and I have a response property that I can plug in to pretty much any action in the field. And what's going to happen is this is going to run my question, get a response, and now it's going to be saved to the record. So for the Summarize Record action, let's think back to that sales to onboarding handoff example. And instead of me as the admin needing to decide how I'm going to build that note, what information I'm going to include, maybe AI can just decide for me based on what data is available. So with the Summarize Record action, you see that it has the same new type of field where I'm going to specify for which record do I want the summary to happen. So I could do it on the deal that is in the workflow, or I could do it for one of the records that's associated to that deal. Let's say that I want to do both. I can get my summary for the enrolled deal. I'm just going to clone this action and add a second one. I'm going to update this one to summarize my associated company. And same thing, once I go and I add my next step in the workflow, which for our example was a note, I can go find my action properties, and you'll see both of my actions are represented here, and I'm just going to add one object summary and then add the other. So again, this action is not doing anything on its own. It's up to me to apply that information that's been generated, and I can use it in many of my workflow actions. All right, the last demo that we have is the create workflow redesign. People here may have a lot to say about that. I would love to hear from you. We know that big redesigns can be really hard on people. They can be hard to adjust to. So we're still in beta. We're still collecting feedback. We're still making changes and updates. So if you have things that you want to see improved, please tell us. You can ask about it in the Q&A. I'm also going to show you how to do it in an app, so you can just pass that along the moment that something comes to you. So why did we do this? Let's take a look at the old page. 1 second. In the past, when creating a workflow, that first step that you got is to choose an object. For less experienced HubSpotters, this choice is confusing. They're coming in, they're thinking about that they want to automate something like maybe related to their website, and they get this decision point. They might think, okay, I do B2B, so do I need to choose company, or what's the difference between a contact and a lead? Like, this decision is going to have a lot of implications for them that they may not understand at that point. Our new experience instead is going to bring you to first thinking about what's going to start your workflow. So again, say I'm a marketer and I want to do something related to my website. I can see what's available for digital interactions, and right there, I've got my website options like visiting a page. Now, as a marketer, I don't have to think about, is it a contact? That just got set for me based on the inference that they're the people who are going to be visiting your page.
Meg, can you zoom in again?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Zeke. Okay. Okay, going back to the old view for a second. The other implication here is that you're committing to a specific object before you really know what triggers are going to be available. And we saw a couple common negative consequences that would happen with this. So you yourself might have found that you created a workflow, realized that you did not have the trigger that you needed. So now you need to start over. You need to remember to go back and delete the old one. And then you have to keep repeating this process until you find what you need. Or we hear from people who are asking about functionality that does exist, but they can't find it. You know, maybe they've just always left this step defaulted to contact. They've been exposed to little else, and they just don't think that there are automation opportunities for what they need to do. Let's dive a little bit more into what changes in the new experience. So imagine you're setting up a workflow and you want it to be based on a specific intent property that you use. You're coming here, all you have in mind is the name of that property. You don't necessarily know offhand like where it exists. Is it on a contact, a company? You just have the name. So here you're going to start making changes based on that use case. You know it's related to data, you know it's related to your CRM, you know that it's a property, and it's just this one property that you're interested in. And so here you'll see you are going to encounter object choices here in this new experience when we might need to gather that information from you, or it's helpful for you to make that distinction because you're looking for something that you know where it is. But we've built in this alternate option here where you can just search for your properties from everywhere in the CRM. So say I'm just searching for my intent property. I'm going to get a bunch of different matches. I can see I've got my company, the high intent. That's actually the one I'm looking for. We've got these descriptions that will help you confirm that you're choosing the right property. But my results here are also going to show from contacts or various other places where that property has a match. And again, if I'm say, yes, that's the property I want, then the workflow is just going to set itself to be a company because I chose a company type property. So a couple other things that I want to point out. I'll get you the zoom. Okay. This redesign does not take away any features or functionality. Everything that was possible in the old one is possible here. If you feel like that's not the case, perhaps we have something categorized or put somewhere that you're not expecting. That's exactly the type of feedback that we would love to hear from you. For those of you who don't really like to start with your trigger, maybe you want to add your actions first, you can skip setting up a trigger. You are going to need to commit to a certain object type before you get in there, but then you can go immediately to the builder. And specifically for the admins who are doing things that are really nuanced and robust, if you're just one of these people who wants to do really specific filter criteria, that's still available. It's right here. You choose that option in your record, and you're going to get the full filter component with all those nuanced options that you're interested in. So, like I said, this is in beta. You can come and go as you wish while you adjust, and we will let you continue to do that until August. You're going to see when you're here in the tool, you've got this little green beta tag here, and you can opt in and out, go to the old experience, the new experience as often as you like. And right here, you can submit feedback. So if you're in the middle of doing something and you find a tripping point, go ahead, click that, tell us what it is. Please leave a comment. I read every single comment. It's going to come directly to me and the rest of my team. So I would encourage you to do that. All right. Any Q&A you have, again, please go ahead, put it in the Q&A so we can come back to it. And now we're going to go to what's coming next. Please note, subject to change. Don't come for me on LinkedIn. I want to give you exciting updates. Nothing's a sure thing until it's in your hands. So what do we got? Did I say subject to change? All right. Somebody mentioned AI in the chat and how it's not really working for them. They're trying to talk like a marketer, but this thing is being very literal. Absolutely. I hear you. You may have noticed that the new Breeze Copilot launched last week, and we're actively working right now to bring it into workflows so it can help you build your workflows with a huge quality upgrade. We've got the trigger and the action creation today, but like I said, you have to be very specific. You ask for something and you might get that specific thing back. Like, it can save you a lot of time, but it's not very good at letting you speak in your own words and then helping navigate you to the best automation for that use case. So the new Breeze Copilot in workflow is going to help bring your ideas to life. It will give you guidance, make recommendations. We're super excited for this one, and we're working on it now. Someone in the chat had immediately asked about line items. I'm sorry, I don't have line items on deck here, but we do have sales email workflows and meeting type workflows that are being worked on right now. So you're going to see those soon. That same concept with the set marketing status action, we're making that same upgrade to enroll in sequence here soon. So you'll be able to enroll a contact into a sequence from a deal workflow, a company workflow, whichever one you want. And then one that people are getting really excited about is granular permissions, which Pukhraj teased the manually enroll permission, which we came to introduce with the CRM card. We know people want their reps to be able to benefit from those, but they don't necessarily want them going into the workflows app and doing whatever they want. And then a publish permission. So as an admin, you might be the workflow person and everybody comes to you with their requests. You're the experienced one. You know how to use automation safely. And you might not want to count on letting your teammates go in there and start poking around. But that just puts so much on your plate and creates that bottleneck with your team. So we're going to give this publish permission update so that you can let more people into the workflows tool. They can learn, they can do some of that groundwork and be empowered to solve their own challenges. But there's still that guardrail, keeping them from setting anything live until that confidence is gained. And now you can move into the role of just being that quality control check, and everybody wins. All right, and then finally, for our more technical users, we are going to introduce user-configured action rate limits for the custom code action and the webhook action. So by default, we're always running our workflow actions as fast as possible. That is actually not always good. So if you're calling an API from another system and there are rate limits coming in there, it could actually create a lot of problems. So with this feature, you can add your own rate limits, just knowing that that's going to impact your whole workflow from that point on, but give you a little bit more of that control. So that's all we are formally covering If you have not added your questions to the Q&A, please take a moment to do so, and then we will start diving into those.
All right. Lots of stuff bubbling up in the chat. I'll be exporting that out. So if you all haven't been able to keep up with it, you review it later. Q&A, we've got 41 questions currently. I'm going to give you all a few minutes to hop in there. All you attendees, hop in there. Look for questions that sound like the question you want to ask. If you haven't asked your question yet, and upvote them. We will go most upvoted to least upvoted until we run out of time, because that'll probably happen before we run out of questions. But feel free to add other questions in there too if you don't see your question, because I will also export those out and share them with the team, so at least they will know the question exists. I'll give you a couple more seconds. We'll make sure all the votes are in. All right, that's good enough for me. Here we go. Most upvoted. Paul, with 15 upvotes, asks, one of the challenges we face as a larger org using HubSpot is communicating effectively with users. Will workflows allow more internal notification options? For example, notifying not only by team or owner, but by seat or permission set.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. We do have user workflows. I don't know if those have changed anything for you if you tried to use them. But as far as like the types of notifications and who's targeted, we don't have anything in the works, but we can definitely take that back and pass it along. See if we can motivate somebody to add that.
Cool. Also with 15 upvotes, Madison asks, for the note creation workflow action, I see that you can pin notes. Awesome. Does this override any existing pin notes if one already exists on a record?
Probably.
Yeah.
Zeke says probably.
I'll ask. I'll come back in about.
He'll find out. We're clearly not note experts.
That's all right. We'll circle back to that. Oh my goodness, I need to resort because now some of the farther down ones have more than 15 votes. All right, with 18 votes.
Yes, it does.
Oh, what?
Someone in the chat said, yes, it does. The pin note.
Oh, cool. With 18 upvotes, Rachel asks, do users need to have workflow access to enroll in workflow from CRM card? Hesitant to give all our reps access. This question was asked near the beginning, so I know this has been touched on, but if you could just reiterate the current status and coming status.
No worries. Yeah, so currently right now, the reps do need a workflows edited access. This new permission is expected to be out in Q3, so this won't be a problem for too long. So
what's the current experience if I, as a rep, don't have access? Are the buttons grayed out? Does the card disappear as a whole? What is that?
Yeah, so you won't be able to enroll. The card will still show up, but you won't be able to enroll any object into our workflow.
Cool. All right. I was too quick on sorting this. The new highest with 21 upvotes is from Suzanne, saying, assuming this is possible but not tried it, could AI be used to summarize all engagement of a contact? For example, number of emails sent, open, clicked, ad interactions, web pages viewed, and possibly buyer intent data, HubSpot, 6 Sense, etc. Thinking of how to possibly create a note for an owner or a property that could then be pushed to Salesforce.
So right now, that summarize record action that I showed, you're going to choose one specific record. So you can't really just like set it live and say like, I want all the engagement summarized. You could like add a data source to your workflow to say, I want like the most recent sales email summarized. But I think that's a really cool idea for us for more AI actions. So thank you for sharing that.
And I will say, just this morning, I was playing with the new Copilot, and you can ask it to do stuff like this, and it does it. Like I was like, look at all my deals, find the ones that haven't been updated, haven't had any activity in the last 5 days. Tell me, summarize the communication up to this point, and give me a recommendation of the email I should send to re-engage them. And it did it. That was all just one prompt, and in 22 seconds, it did it. So like, that's probably your best bet right now. But as that new technology, whatever it is, it's been baked into Copilot, makes its way to other parts of the platform, I can imagine that totally be possible someday.
It would also be cool if we could grab data from multiple different sources and then like loop through them to do a bunch of these operations.
Ooh.
Combine the data into one. Doing operations on multiple things at once has been something that we tried to think about, but we haven't really dug into it.
Great. Let's see. Now the sort is looking pretty good. Kenneth says 10 upvotes. Are created notes in a deal also associated to the deal's associated contacts?
We are only associating it to it's on the record that you've chosen, and there are not additional associations being added to it right now.
Trying to think, there's separate logic where you can choose how like emails and activities and things are displayed on records from associated things. I think there's some you might be able to get there. But it would, the workflow just puts it on whatever the enrolled record is, the targeted record. You may be able to view it from other records depending on how those settings are. I'm not sure about that. Are there probably approvals for workflows on the roadmap? Same like approvals for deals or marketing assets, taking into account that workflows can be critical and also latest features like AI generated workflows are in use. Such an approval process would be really important and useful.
Right. So our first step in that direction is the new publish permission that's coming. I think it will be easier for us to consider adding approvals down the line once that's in place. So hopefully that covers you, gives you more options in the short term, and then we'll see if we're evolving that. People are really talking about it, really requesting it.
Great. Will the enroll in sequence workflow actions still only be available at the sales and service enterprise level?
That's what it is today, then it stay at that level.
I will say, like pricing and packaging decisions are made separately from like product feature launches. These are the folks who can make that action available in different types of workflows. They're not necessarily the folks who can bring it down to a different level or put it in a different hub. I think it's accurate.
Fortunately, that is true. Tell them that you want that.
Let's see. Oh, interesting. Are there additional permissions for workflows planned, like edit and publish separated, and also separate permissions for simple workflows would be really useful, taking into account that simple workflows are not critical but easy to handle by most, for example, marketers in their daily business, while any other kind of workflow basically needs more experienced or admin users. Currently, there's only one user permission available for any kind. Pukhraj, I see you responded to this.
Yeah, I just reiterated that the publish permission is something that we are considering. I haven't really thought about separate permissions for something like simple workflows, but that is something we can take to the team and discuss further.
It's really interesting. For anyone not familiar, when we say simple workflows, generally we're talking about like embedded automation, like inside your deal stages or in a form. And having those permissions be separate is a interesting concept. Let's see. Okay, that's been answered. Can you use the automation tool to check current workflows to find issues?
The overview?
I'm guessing this is Robin. Robin, if you're talking about the overview or not, let us know in the chat.
Yeah, so I think the review automation issues tab, it should surface all current automations that are on. So I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the issues that are on the overview page are issues that are for your active automations.
Great, that makes sense. Melissa says it would be extremely helpful to have a centralized way to compare performance data across multiple workflows, similar to how metrics can be compared side by side in the email tool. Currently, reviewing metrics requires opening each workflow individually, which is time-consuming and inefficient when analyzing overall performance or testing variations. A consolidated dashboard or comparison view would greatly improve workflow optimization and reporting. I will mention, is it the new, fairly new, not super new, health tab? Is that what it's called on the workflows page? Like that shows performance of workflows for just the, how's it work? The view you're currently on or something. If you have like custom views of workflows, you can see reports just for those, I think. Am I making this up?
There is a health tab, and there are reports on there. I am not an expert on the reporting aspect. Pukhraj, do you know, is there anything like that? Reporting on the overview page, is that going to be part of it?
We actually, we're thinking about having like your most popular workflows and comparing them side by side. So really, really similar to what you were saying, Melissa, but right now nothing is confirmed yet. Essentially what that would look like is it would show you out of your most popular workflows, how many contacts are still in a workflow, how many fail to finish, how many actually finish the workflow. And it would have like, for example, let's say like your top 5 workflows side by side. So you could compare them in like one view rather than sort of navigating to, you know, this particular workflow page, this particular workflow page, this particular workflow page. So it is something we are actively thinking about, but again, don't want to commit to something before we actually begin.
I'm gonna share my screen. So I mentioned the health tab. I was wrong. It's this analyze tab. And look, you can choose groups of workflows, and then for any of your views, you can choose which view you want to look at. If you custom Kyle's first view. So if you want to make a group of workflows, then you can see them compared here in terms of enrollment, and mostly just enrollment, I guess. But anyway, you can see some stats here and changes over time. My workflows are all turned off, so this is not super interesting, but might be something worth exploring, Melissa and the 8 people who upvoted the idea.
Yeah, we can pass that along.
Cool. Is it? Oh, I like this question. Is it possible to create a workflow that detects when a contact has watched more than 5 or 10 minutes of a video embedded on my landing page?
I know there's some video-related triggers, but if you don't see what you need available currently, then I'm going to assume no. But we can go talk to the video folks and ask if they have plans to add any more granularity or any additional triggers.
Yeah, that's a very common event to create a sort of like user has seen some portion of a video.
I'm sharing my screen again. Sorry. So I searched for media. There's media play, and you can add criteria.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just the specific media is any of, you know, I don't know what these are. If these are my videos or what. I thought there was like, there might be one for like video watch length. Maybe not. Check out that media one. I think that's, anyway, I think this is what we've got right now. Jeremy asks, is Kyle going to miss us so badly that he weeps uncontrollably? No, I'll be snuggling a baby. I won't think about you guys at all. In the nicest way possible. How does this card workflow work when it uses a restricted attribute on which the user does not have access? Will they still see the workflow in the card?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they will still see the workflow. If they do try and enroll, it will throw an error. So the user will not be able to actually enroll if they do not have access to that particular attribute.
So is that like specific properties that they don't have access to, or is this like tools also, emails, stuff? What? Yeah.
I think some apps have particular properties that we've seen get used in workflows, and not all users have access to those properties. So if a workflow does have one of those properties and a user who doesn't have access tries to enroll with into a workflow that has that restricted property, then it would throw an error. And that error will be surfaced on the card, so the user will know that they can't enroll for that particular reason.
Is that going to be the same for? Do we have specific permissions for read-only versus read-write? Because if you have read-only access, I would imagine that it should be okay to execute the workflow, right? Because you're not looking at what the property is, you're just using it as part of the workflow. We may need to dig into it. There may be some nuances with how we handle the permissions, but the point is that it should execute how you would expect it. So if we do our job right, it'll do what you expect it to do.
If they don't have access, they shouldn't be able to go.
Right. Okay. In a similar vein, is it visible in the activity stream, for example, on the contact itself, that the workflow was triggered by a user via the workflow card, or will it simply show as enrolled completed like usual?
Good question. That's a very simple change, regardless of what it shows. If it's not showing the proper thing, Pukhraj, we should probably ensure that we're doing that, because that's just we're doing a manual enrollment, so it should be easy. What does that sound? Is anybody else?
I don't know.
It was me.
It's the heat pump.
Yeah.
Well, now I don't hear it. I don't know. We're all unmuted again. That may have just been a weirdness of the platform. Slowly getting louder. It's like, I don't know, something's coming. Okay. So it may not be displayed on like the activity timeline currently, but it would be like if you were looking at enrollment histories and stuff, you could see that it was a manual enrollment. Is that
right? How it's enrolled is determined exclusively by literally our front-end developers building it. It's just it's a simple change if we need to make it be, if we needed to say like it was enrolled from a new source, then we would be able to make that change. So if that's something that customers want or expect, we should do that. Yeah.
Cool. Are workflows able to trigger off activities and properties within the activity? For example, can you trigger a workflow on a meeting that is past the meeting date and the meeting outcome has not been updated to complete? It would send a task to meeting owner to update accordingly. I'll mention that example specifically. The sales workspace does automatically all by itself without creating a workflow. But to the point of the question, is this a thing you could build a workflow around?
Well, we have a team working on meeting workflows. So I would be optimistic that this will become possible once they're available.
Cool. Is there an enroll in journey automation action like enroll in sequence?
We don't currently have that, but we can look into it.
Trying to think if it goes the other way. I don't know if enroll in workflow is an action in journey automation. I don't remember.
I don't think so.
But workflows can enroll things in workflows. That's a thing you can do. Can we use all the apps we have integrated in HubSpot in workflows? Some apps have workflow actions. Not all do. Is that just determined by how the app is designed by the people who built it?
Yes. Yeah. So if they want to build a workflow action that becomes available when you install their app, then it becomes available. Yeah.
Cool. So if you have an app that doesn't have workflow actions and you think it should, let the app builder know and they can do that. Okay. Paul has a long comment about automation overview. I've recently made more use of workflows, view, connections. I wish there was a way to combine this workflow relies on X properties list in that sidebar with the properties used in view under settings and bolster everything. Ultimately, the challenge is making sure that when we change some SOP, that all places in all workflows that need to adjust get adjusted. I would even love a conversational AI interface, perhaps, where we can say, hey, this user was deactivated. Please show me all the places in workflows that this change impacts.
That makes sense. Going to ask a question. What does SOP mean?
Standard operating procedure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just like Deanna will rescue us, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can definitely think about this more. I can bring this feedback forward to the team. Yeah, I see it's already gotten a couple more upvotes, so it is something that not only you, Paul, but other people are thinking about. So definitely can bring this information back to the team, and then we can go from there.
Cool.
Kyle, can I pick one?
Yeah.
Can I pick a question to answer?
Yeah, it'll be our last one. Do it.
Okay, good, because it's something that maybe we want to work on. I love seeing mentions of features that maybe are already in my head, and if people are asking about it. So there were one or two about a way to restrict the number of objects, in our case, that can go through an action. So rate limit and action execution at the action level or at the workflow level. We've talked about having user control rate limits just because on our end, we do a lot of very fancy rate limiting to ensure our systems don't go down at the wrong time. Like if somebody enrolls millions of objects at the same time, we want to make sure we don't take out most of HubSpot. But having it be user defined is something that we've talked about, especially with our backend, right? Like they're the ones that usually bring it up. But it was brought up a couple of times of saying something like, you only want to allow 100 contacts to execute this at the same time. And somebody even mentioned that they create branches with a bunch of delays to simulate this. So if whatever channel we have to give feedback to HubSpot, definitely, obviously this is one of them, but make noise about that one, because I would love to hear more and then be asked to build it at some point. Like we can never make promises. I was told not to make promises to anybody here, but that does sound like a really cool new logic operator that we'll definitely discuss internally. But no, at the moment, we do not have a way for users to do their own rate limiting, unfortunately.
Cool. Well, we are at time. Really quickly, thank you for being here, all three of you. If people want to follow up with you after this, where do you hang out? Do you like LinkedIn? What's your preferred, or do you not want them to?
LinkedIn works.
Yeah, LinkedIn. I had our names up on the first slide. I think you'll be able to find them. Oh, Deanna's got us. Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Have a great Tuesday. I would say hope to see you all back next Tuesday. We will not be here next Tuesday. Nobody will be here
Nobody will be here next Tuesday.
Not just me. Nobody. Not meeting next Tuesday. But in a couple weeks, all of you come back, hang out with Deanna and whoever's speaking in 2 weeks, and it'll be great. Have a great summer, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.